Welcome to the Solo Grind, where we shine a light on the raw and real journey of being a solo entrepreneur. I am Teresa, your guide on this adventure of going it alone, without a safety net and without the rule book. The grind is real, my friend, and so are the wins, the freedom, and the joy of building success on your own terms. I'm here to debunk the myths, share some laughs, and share what it takes to thrive as a go-getter, busy, doing it all entrepreneur. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Solo Grind. I am Teresa Shaloub and I am so excited that you are here with me today because I have got a very exciting topic that I've actually been working on quite a bit here over the last couple of days, researching, interviewing, and just digging deep into my own thoughts on the topic. And that is the mess behind success. So before we get started, as usual, I've forgotten to introduce who I am to those new to the podcast. Teresa Shaloub. I am the original Caffeine Creative, and I am a brand strategist, web designer, and digital marketer. I help confident women entrepreneurs in service-based industries put themselves out there online and to do so in a way that is unique to them and confident in their own amazing abilities. And that is who I am in a nutshell. You can find me at thecaffeinecreative.io if you want to connect, and I would love to connect with you. And I want to welcome you to the show. To those of you joining me who have been here before, as always, I am so grateful you are here. I'm raising my cup of tea to you for joining me again. And I'm excited to have you here for this episode because I think it's going to be a really good one. So this month, the month of January in 2025, we have been talking all about success and we've been trying to build onto the success. It's the start of a new year and everyone's talking about success and goals and resolutions and all of those things and how this will be the best year ever or new year, new you and all the stuff. We hear it all the time. So I wanted to try and take a new approach or a different approach that I don't often see. And so that's kind of what I've been building on throughout these episodes in January. And we started off with dreaming and visualizing. What is it that we really want to create? What do we want our 2025 to look like? And I really tried to inspire you guys to really dream big about what it is that you want. And then to take those dream big goals. And in episode 2, we talked about focusing and planning and gaining clarity. Like, what is it that you want to do what do you need to get clear on? I should say, stumbling in my words, apologize. So that you can create those dream big goals in 2025. What do you need to do? How do you break it up? How can you go for what is going to have a really powerful impact in your life? And again, those dream big goals don't have to be on a national, international level. They don't have to be earth shattering. And I feel like I want to say that every time I mention it because all too often we feel obligated to choose something really big and bold and audacious, and it doesn't have to be. It can absolutely be something as simple as the example that I shared, grocery shopping once a week. That had such a powerful impact in my life that it was something very necessary that I needed to change. And it was a very powerful goal for me to accomplish way back when I started doing it, or, when I had that goal. So I'll share the link to that episode, you guys, to all of them for January, so you can quickly click and look at the ones you want to. But that's kind of where we've been at. And then last week, we talked about staying on track and building momentum. That is something that's not easy to do. It's easy to set goals. It's easy on January 1st to write down, I am going to accomplish these 5 amazing things this year, and to be excited about it and to think that you can do it. And then we get close to February and all of a sudden we realize things aren't as easy as we thought, or maybe we're feeling a little bit discouraged. Maybe we've hit a road bump. Maybe life has thrown us a big old curveball or even a little curveball. Whatever the case is, there's going to be a point in time in trying to achieve our goals that we're going to come up to something that makes us pause, that'll knock us off course. And how do you stay focused? How do you continue moving forward? How do you build momentum from there? So that was last week. We talked all about that. Again, I'll put a link to each one of these in the show notes this week so you can click and find the one that connects best with you. But today, what I want to talk about is something that I haven't really seen anywhere. I haven't seen anyone approach it from this perspective and angle. And maybe I'm not new and unique in this, and that's okay. I don't mind. To those who have shared this idea out there and put it out into the world before me, kudos, because I think it's something we need to talk about. And that simply, my friends, is the mess, I should say, behind success. And what I'm talking about is that all too often, from the outside looking in, we think that those around us have it all figured out. They know how to be amazing. They know how to be awesome. Their life is effortless. They accomplish things easily. And we wish that we could be as accomplished, as gracefully as they are. And spoiler alert, that's not true. There is a lot of mess behind the scenes that we don't show to the world, that we don't put out there. And we don't put it out there because honestly, most of the time we're just happy to be beyond it. We are happy to be past it and happy to get to that moment of accomplishment. But it is a very real aspect of striving for success and trying to create something really big and bold and amazing, like building your own business. And it doesn't even have to be limited to just building your own business. This could be anything that you want to accomplish. There are going to be challenges and setbacks, and there's going to be an ugly aspect of things. While you may see somebody that you really admire, that you've been following out there online with their beautiful branded photos and things like that, what you don't see are the smelly laundry day scenes behind camera, or they're not behind camera, and their hair's up in a messy bun and they've got to get laundry done, but they're working on a deadline and they're trying to get things done. And life isn't very pretty at that moment. We don't see the struggles and the frustrations that others are going through. We think things are effortless. And honestly, I want to share the inspiration for this particular podcast came this weekend when my husband and we were talking, and we were just talking about life in general, and the topic of our daughter came up. Now, our daughter Tiana, she is incredibly accomplished woman. She is going to be 25 in March, and what she has accomplished in her life is remarkable in her 25 years. And she really is just getting started. But yet she sometimes doesn't feel that she's that accomplished. What other people see looking in, and I know this because being her mom, people have always told me, or, come up and talk to me, and they're like, oh, Tiana is so accomplished. Tiana can do anything. Everything comes so easy to Tiana. It must be nice having a daughter who, as everything comes so easy to her. And while those people were trying to compliment Tiana, it was a little bit insulting at the time when I would hear it, not even though I knew they weren't trying to be insulting. And I don't want to pick fights or anything. But what they didn't see was how hard Tiana worked behind the scenes. My daughter works really hard at everything she's accomplished. It didn't come easily to her. It came with hours of study and planning and practicing and trying and failing and trying again and failing again and getting better and all of those things. And that's exactly what is behind that entrepreneurial spirit. That's what is behind all of us who achieve new levels of success. And that is that never giving up moment, that pushing through the mess and getting to that moment of success. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about here today. And instead of just, sharing hey, it's not going to be easy and sometimes things suck, but you'll get through, you got this. I wanted to share what the mess looks like because it looks different for each and every one of us. So in this episode, I'm going to be sharing, I'm going to need a sip of tea. Sorry, my throat is dry. Okay. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing what mess looks like for me because it is different than what other people are sharing. But I also reached out to two of the most inspirational women in my life, Crystal Loveless Nurple and Emily Aborn. And I asked them what their mess look like? What was it behind the scenes for them that they struggled with? And they both graciously shared some insights with me, which I'm going to be sharing with you. And then I'm also going to share at the end how I push through it all, because pushing through is what gets us to the other side and makes things a lot better. So let's start honestly with me. Um, Let me pull up my notes here. Okay. Here we go. See, this was funny that the very first one that I have listed on my notes is being unable to articulate or say what I want to say. I just forgot what I wanted to say, and here I am struggling with that, and it's in my notes. Thank you, notes, for having my back there. That is something I struggle with, is what do I say? How do I articulate this? And how do I say it clearly and confidently? Now, this actually is not something that I have struggled with for a long time. Years and years ago, when I first got into public speaking, I struggled a little bit about it because I want to share everything all the time. And I am a talker. I mean, I grew up in a family of talkers. Come to my house and you will never get a word in edgewise. Or my family's house. Come to my house now and God, now let's talk, because we're not big talkers now. But I have always been a talker, and I've always had I had a hard time earlier on trying to articulate myself. I got really good at it, became a public speaker. I've spoken to groups of thousands. That's never been an issue for me for a long time. It's not been an issue. And then all of a sudden, I got chemo brain, and people talk about chemo brain and they kind of joke about it and laugh about it. And it's kind of like pregnancy brain, where all of a sudden your brain just doesn't function well or fire right. And it's a real thing. So I am, a couple of years out from chemo, and I still struggle with that chemo brain. And this is a hang up for me. This honestly is one of the reasons it took me so long to launch the podcast. It's one of the reasons why I stopped doing videos. Like, I used to do videos sometimes daily, sometimes twice a week, whatever the case. I was very active in doing videos to market myself. And it's one of the reasons that I quit, because of the insecurity behind that, because this chemo brain is real. I start to say something and I forgot what I was going to say, or all of a sudden I can't get the right words. I can't bring out the right words and how to articulate what it is I want to say, or I use the wrong word. That happens often. I actually recorded this episode earlier today and had to re-record it because chemo brain was running rampant through that message. And at one point I talked about how all we see is the glass and the glitz and the glamour, and glass was not what I wanted to say. I don't know what I wanted to say, but it wasn't the right word and it didn't fit. Like, it wasn't the right context for what I was sharing. And so that's one of those things that I know. I actually reached out to Emily after I recorded that episode, and she gave me some really valuable insights. She's like, that's a pretty common thing. There are people who have ADHD or other neurodiverse issues who struggle with what to say. There are people who struggle with confidence of getting up and knowing what to say, stage fright, all of those things. And that's a very real thing. So right now, out there, anyone who has ever stepped out of your comfort zone, who has stepped up and done a video, a podcast, an interview, a public event, whatever, I raise my glass to you, because that takes courage. It takes so much courage, and it is so difficult, and it is so challenging, and it's an incredibly vulnerable moment to do. So kudos to you for stepping up and doing it. And for me, just know when I say random weird words, I don't have Tourette's, I have chemo brain. And I promise you that I will try to keep it to a minimum and record myself. I still want to be very real in my recordings, but just know, sometimes it's going to happen. All right. Another one of my challenges that I have is that I see the world very differently. So, going into strengths and things like that, one of my top strengths is strategy. And basically, when you are a strategist, you can see the world, and this is the easiest way I know to describe it, and maybe we'll expand on this in a future episode. But as a strategist, I see the world from a lot of different angles, where most people see things either as black and white with maybe a few varying shades of gray. I say 50 Shades of Gray, honestly, and not in the naughty book title, but I see things from so many different angles that I just perceive the world very differently than those around me. Not only do I see things very differently, but I'm able to process what I see incredibly quickly, and knowing what here's the potentials out. If we make this choice A, these are the 50 potentials that could come out of that, and which one is going to be the best for me. I can process that information very, very quickly. I thought everyone's brain worked that way. I honestly did. It wasn't until I started going through chemo and my brain stopped working the way that I loved that I realized that that was not the case. Like sometimes people just don't see the world that way. So by having such a different perspective on the world and being able to see things and process information very quickly, I often I often ticked people off. I made a lot of people mad and they thought I was questioning them. They got offended, whatever. And then that went to the third thing that is on my list is they would call me weird or some other variation of that. So that's a tough one for me to overcome because for so long, the strength of mine, the strategy, this being able to see things, the very thing that makes me a good entrepreneur, a good podcast producer, a good or podcast host, I should say, a good web designer, brand strategist, all those things, the very strength that makes me good at who I am and what I do was the very thing that annoyed a lot of people that I thought I had to squash and I had to push it down. I didn't want to be weird. I wanted to be normal. And I was constantly reminded that I wasn't normal because people didn't see the world the way I did. That was something really big for me to overcome. And I would say, as an entrepreneur, I guarantee you're going to see the world in ways that other people don't, because that's how we think. We have a very creative mind that sees things differently, and others aren't going to always get it. And that's okay. I, my friend, am willing to encourage you to continue seeing the world differently. Continue showing up the way that you are, because that's God made that brain for a reason and we need what you have in it. So those are kind of my biggest struggles. Being unable to clearly articulate myself, seeing the world so differently and having different perspectives that it often annoyed people, and then being called weird because I was so different. That was my struggle. And it can still be my struggle. There's still things that come up from all of those things that make me pause or postpone or not do things the way that I want to do them, because sometimes I let those thoughts get in my way. Now, I will share at the end how I push them out of my way and how I keep going forward. But I want to go ahead and share from the perspective of two other women, because they had some things on their list that I hadn't thought of. And honestly, I would not have guessed it. If I was to say, look at from the outside looking in, I wouldn't have guessed that either one of them felt the things that they felt that they shared with me. So the first one, okay, is Crystal Loveless Nurple. Crystal is the author of the newly published book, Loving Your Home, Clean Up Your Focus, Not Your House. It is an amazing book. I will put the links in my show notes so that you guys can get it, because it is such a powerful book. And Crystal is also my best friend. So all of us need that best friend who is willing to be be there by your side, getting into whatever you're getting into, cheering you on, encouraging you, but also being your conscience. Because I can be that person who makes rash decisions and does things on an impulse, and they're not always the best decisions. Crystal, thank God, has been by my side since we were 8 years old, and she has always encouraged me and helped me be the best version of myself. I've had the privilege of watching Crystal accomplish so much that honestly it could be multiple episodes if we wanted to talk about all of her accomplishments, which I know she would not want me to do that because she would be like, oh my God, talk about something else. But Crystal is a highly accomplished person. Her most recent accomplishment is publishing this book, Loving Your Home. And that is something that what she shared about when I asked her, you're like, what are the things in your way or may want you to throw in the towel or whatever the case is. And for her, it was the frustration of creating that she ran into. She knew she had this book inside of her and she knew she wanted to get it out there. But oftentimes what she put out there, what she put on paper, not out into the whole world, but just on paper, in her words, was garbage. One of the first editions of the book that she wrote, our first drafts that she wrote, she did one of those challenges, write your book in 30 days. And she was like, cool, I'm going to write my book in 30 days. How awesome is this? And then she got to the point to where at the end of the 30 days, she read the book and she's like, this is complete garbage. I would not put this out there. This is terrible. She didn't love it. And that frustration of trying to get it out of what she wanted to say was a big thing for her. Now, the difference is that, and she specifically pointed this out, she never thought of throwing in the towel. She never considered quitting. She knew she had to get it out there and that she was going to eventually get it through. And so she continued pushing through, which kind of brings up the other thing that she shared that I found to be really interesting. And I know this is one that I have experienced, and I would say every person listening to this podcast has experienced. There were times when some of the people closest to her were not giving her the encouragement and the support that she was craving and that she wanted. Now, this doesn't mean that they're jerks or that they didn't believe in her or that they're not proud of her, because they're not jerks. They do believe in her. They are very proud of her. That is clear. And I know that for a fact because I know who we're talking about here. But they still weren't there to give her the encouragement. And sometimes we have this expectation of those around us to show up and give us the love and support and encouragement we need to push through whatever obstacle or barrier we have in the moment. And they don't always know that they need to do that, or they don't know how. They could very well be caught up in their own mess behind their success and not even realize that we are needing them in the moment. They may not realize that their encouragement is so valuable to us. And that is something that, is probably another topic for a podcast. But again, it's one that all of us experience. And then I think was a really good one for Crystal to share. So thank you, Crystal, for sharing so openly with that. I am just in awe of how much you've accomplished. All right. So again, check out her book, Loving Your Home, Clean Up Your Focus, Not Your Life. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I highly recommend this. While Crystal's focus is all about cleaning up the home, but starting with mindset first, this book is going to help you get clarity in your business, in your life, in everything, to where you can create the life that you love. And to me, it's the guidebook to creating the life that you love. And I have the life I have because I've been with Crystal through this journey. So definitely check out her book. All right. Now I want to move on to Emily. And Emily Aborn has been on this podcast before. She is a dear, dear friend of mine. I absolutely adore her. And interestingly enough, Emily and I have only known each other for a couple of years. We met through Crystal, through professional channels. She built this membership site, podcast, website, all the amazing things. And Crystal discovered her and brought me into the loop. So I don't have the insight into Emily's full life like I do with Crystal's. But when I look at Emily, and especially before I got a chance to really get to know her, what I saw was this amazing, intelligent, quirky, confident, fun-loving, sweet, amazing woman that I, in some ways, wanted to be like, especially when it came to the confidence of her podcast and how she shows up in her episodes, how engaging she is when she would have guests on the She Built This podcast. And I just thought, God, she's so amazing and she's got it all figured out. And it's so funny because, again, I'm just going to tell you guys, none of us do. We don't think we do, at least. And she very graciously shared some of her things with me as well. So I'm going to share those with you. So before we dive in, as I said, Emily is this very accomplished podcast. And just to kind of tell you how accomplished she is as a podcast host, she has recorded, as of the day of this recording, she has recorded 87 episodes of her Content with Character podcast, and she had recorded 250 episodes of her She Built This podcast, which she's no longer producing. She's also been on probably 100 plus other podcasts as guest, this one included. So she has really been out there in the podcast world. Like her name shows up in the podcast world a lot because she's very well accomplished. And yet, even to this day, as Emily is preparing a new episode or working on something she has for content with characters, she still will struggle and wonder once she's done recording, did I get all the nuances? Did I cover everything that I wanted to say? Did I offend anybody? Because even though Emily is very open and confident in her own opinion of things, and she constantly says, this is my opinion. You don't have to buy into my opinion. She also wants to do it in a very respectful way. And she doesn't want to offend anybody. She's a very sweet, kind woman. And she questions, is anybody even listening to this? She has been on probably upwards of 400 podcasts, and she still wonders, is anybody listening to this? So that's one of the things. There's a side note that I want to add here, and this is through her encouragement. If you have somebody out there who is encouraging you, somebody who you listen to, who you tune in, who's helping you get through a portion of your life or whatever it is, reach out, tell them, because it really is hard sometimes to remember what you do matters when you don't hear the feedback. And to other people, Emily and anyone else out there producing content, I guarantee you're being heard more than you realize. I know this. I've learned this through my own trial and error, and I guarantee you're being heard more than you realize. But I also understand that questioning. That's why reviews and message me's and things like that, why we say, give us a review, give us a rate our podcast, shoot me a message, tell me these things, because it does remind us that what we're doing matters. And that's something that obviously is a big question. Even after 400 episodes, we wonder, is anybody listening? Some other things that Emily shared with me was the marketing aspect of stuff. So not only is it trying to figure out how to market it, where to market it, what's the best way, those kind of things, it's vulnerable to get out there and say, hey, world, look at me. Look at what I'm doing. I want you to see me. It is so incredibly scary to do that. And so that's a struggle a lot of us do. In fact, when it comes to working with people on their digital marketing, I'll go to take a look at what they're doing in social media or whatever. And what I see is them hiding behind quotes and clever posts. I don't see them showing up in their marketing. I don't see them getting out there and allowing people to build a relationship with them, because it's scary. It's terrifying, but it's absolutely necessary if you want to build a reputation and be well known. So there you go. All right. One of the other things too that Emily shared here that I want to put out there is the should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? Am I doing it the right way? What is the wrong way? Oh my gosh, we could all spend a long time caught up in how should I do this? And in fact, shoulds is one of those things that can actually create so many fears in our brains that it will lock us in fear and keep us frozen in place. So we're not accomplishing things because we're like, what is the right way to do this? How should I take this on? How should I market myself? How should I promote this podcast? What title should I use? What should I do? All the questions. Am I doing it the right way? My friend, if it feels good to you, you're doing it the right way. Trust me on that one. That is one, thankfully, I've been able to move past for the most part, but it wasn't without a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of stress and a lot of worry on my mind. So those are the things that that Emily shared with us. And so just to kind of recap a little bit, the things that between the three of us, there's that fear of showing up, the doubts of if what we're doing actually matters, the frustration of having to do and redo and do and redo and try and fail again and all of those things. It's the lack of support that we sometimes really, really need to keep pushing through a rough day. And it's the sweaty hands and the shaky voice and all the things that come into putting ourselves out into the world. That's the mess behind success. And I don't know anyone who hasn't experienced that in some way, shape, or form. I have talked to so many highly accomplished people, authors, internationally recognized coaches, things like that. And I guarantee each and every one of them I have talked to will talk about that mess behind their success, the doubts, the fear, the worry, the frustration, the struggles. And so I guess what I want you to know with this is that you're not alone. You're not weird. You're not abnormal. You're right on track. It's part of the journey. So, my friends, embrace it and let's try and find ways to get through it so that we can get to the other side and see how amazing we are when we put out something cool in the world. So, here's how I move through these moments. And this again has been lots of practice, lots of times. There are times that I did give up. And I would say to the moments when I did give up, it's because it wasn't a dream that was truly my own. And we've talked about this multiple times in the podcast. Sometimes when it's easy to give up and walk away, it's because we were chasing a dream that wasn't our own. And I think that's okay. I think it's important to acknowledge that. But there were other times, there were things that I wish I'd have done. I wish I'd have followed through. I wish I wouldn't have let fear get in my way. And those moments have passed. And I'm taking them as the lesson learned and moving forward. So for me, first thing that I do when it comes to moving through these struggles is kind of a little mantra of mine, and that is to persist without exception. When there is something that I want to do, I continue, I push through. If I do it and it sucks or I fail, then I figure out what I did wrong or what I could tweak or what I do better, and I do it again. If I am pushing, trying to create or accomplish something, and I get frustrated and angry and nothing is working right, then I take a pause and I step away and I clear my head, and maybe I'll do a little laundry or take a walk or have a cup of tea or play with one of my kittens or my dogs, whatever. But then I come back with that clarity to do what I've set out to do because I am going to accomplish what I said I'm going to do. And again, the things that matter, I will gain that clarity. I will gain that momentum. I will gain that drive to come back and be like, let's try it from this direction, or let's do something different, or hey, all of a sudden this makes sense and I'm going to make it work. So that's the first thing that I do. Persist without exception. Take your breaks, pause, change the schedule, change your priorities, whatever you need to do, but persist without exception and don't let things convince you to give up. Okay. The other thing that I would say that I do that is very helpful is there's going to be a lot of people out there who, this one is particular to me. There's people out here who aren't going to get it. I know we've talked about in the past the copycatters, the naysayers, and the haters. Okay. People who are putting us, down and things like that, saying you can't do that or you shouldn't do that or why are you doing things this way. That was a big one for me is the judgment of what other people thought. And honestly, to this where I'm at in my life now, honestly, I don't even care. Not only that, I don't even know what people are saying about me. I remain and keep myself so focused on what I want to accomplish that I don't have time to see or hear or pay attention to what negative comments somebody is saying. If I happen to stumble upon one, because there's been a few times when somebody has posted something rude or obnoxious on my Facebook page, only on my Facebook page. If I happen to stumble upon and see that they posted something awful, because I do try to go and make a point to respond to comments on my social media. If I see something like that, I just delete it. I don't respond. I don't say anything. I just delete it because they are not on my radar and I don't care what they have to say. But I also stay so focused that often I don't even know. There could be people out there right now making fun of this podcast, trashing me, talking smack about me, whatever, thinking I'm silly, making fun of me stumbling on my words and not being able to articulate myself well or using the wrong word in places. And I wouldn't even know because I just don't have time to care. I'm too focused on what I want to accomplish to care about that kind of stuff. The last thing that I'm just going to toss in, it's not actually in my notes, but it just came to me, is to laugh. just laugh about the things that aren't working well, because you have two choices. You can laugh or you cry. And honestly, for me, laughing about things like using the wrong word is funny. I mean, whatever. My brain is what it is. I'm grateful that I still have it, and I'm grateful that I hear, and I wouldn't take that journey away that hit my brain hard for anything. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So laugh and enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. Sometimes it's going to suck, and that's okay too. But I know that you can get through, and I know that you can make an incredible success for yourself in this year and all the years to come. So with that, I see that this episode has gone on long enough. So I do want to quick finish up. I am going to tell you really quick what is coming up in February, because this is our last episode for January. And in February is the month of love. It is the month of Valentine's Day, which happens to be my birthday. And it is a month that I focus every single year on loving on my life, on my business, on my clients, on my home, on whatever aspect of my life needs the extra love. So that's what we're going to be doing in February. I've got two very special guests that are coming up in February that we're going to be talking about time management. And then Crystal is going to be joining us on a special Valentine's Day episode. I am recording a bonus episode for February where Crystal and I are going to be talking about her book and the loving your home, clean up your focus, not your house. You guys definitely want to tune into this because it's going to be such a great conversation. She has so much amazing wisdom to share. And yes, we're just gonna love the crap out of ourselves next month, because why shouldn't we? Somebody needs to. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm glad that you stuck it through for this whole conversation. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week, where we will be having the lovely Leslie Myrick, who is an associate coach from Nancy Ganzkoffer's team. And she's also an accomplished interior designer. And she is going to be talking to us about time management in a way that I have never even thought of before. So you guys are definitely going to want to tune into that. Until then, have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Grind. I hope this episode brought you some inspiration and encouragement. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and feel free to share. For more tips and insights, visit caffeinecreative.io to check out my blog or explore the Creative Vault, my free course library. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear how this episode has helped you.